Story time about how my boyfriend caught me cheating on him with his best friend. Disclaimer, this is not my story time, it was sent to me on Instagram. My boyfriend is a total asshole. He's super controlling and jealous. If we ever go to parties, he never lets me out of his sight. And if I ever get hit on, he always blames it on me and tells me that I'm an attention seeker. He even tells me that I'm lucky he hasn't broken up with me because I have cellulite. He's always showing me pictures of other girls on Instagram and tells me that I need to work out so that I can look like them. We've been together for almost exactly a year, but recently I decided that I wanted to break up with him. The only part is I don't know how to do it because he has such a short temper. Well, his best friend, let's call him John. John is super nice and kind. He's super easygoing and makes fun of my boyfriend whenever he gets jealous. I recently opened up to John and asked him how I should do it. He basically told me to just get it over with. Well, 2 weeks ago, we all went to a birthday party. I got extremely drunk. As always, my boyfriend was being an asshole. I don't know what came over me, but I grabbed John's hand and I took him to the bathroom. I locked us in there and we started making out. And my boyfriend literally breaks down the door My boyfriend breaks down the door and finds me and his best friend in the bathroom shirtless. Disclaimer, this is not my story time, it was sent to me on Instagram. My boyfriend grabs John by the collar and throws him on the floor. Then they start punching each other. I put my shirt back on and several other people started trying to break up the fight. When they finally separated, I told my boyfriend that I didn't want to be with him and that I was breaking up with him. And he grabbed my arm really hard, pulled me out of the party, and put me in his car. He started punching his steering wheel and I told him to calm down. That's when he tells me that I can't break up with him and that I'll never find anyone better. He drove me to my house and on the way he was interrogating me. I told him he was too jealous, controlling, and that he made me feel terrible about myself. Then he told me that that's how he shows his love. Then I told him it was over again. He said the only reason I was breaking up with him was because I was drunk. When he finally left my house, I called John to apologize for everything. That's when John told me my boyfriend had been cheating on me for months and that he actually got a girl pregnant. And worst of all, I knew the girl. Part 3 is up. I knew the girl that my boyfriend had gotten pregnant. I also knew where she lived, so I got in my car and I went over there. She opened the door and I could clearly see a baby bump. I could not believe it. She invited me in and explained that her and my boyfriend had been seeing each other for a few months and that he wanted her to have an abortion, but she didn't want to. She also told me that he threatened her. She also told me that meeting him was the worst thing that ever happened to her. That's when I started getting phone calls from my boyfriend. He started sending me messages asking me where I am, but I had turned off my location so he couldn't see. I finally answered the phone and when I told him where I was, he hung up on me. When I got home, he was there waiting for me. He denied everything. He said that John made all of that up and that the girl was helping him and that they were only setting out to break us up. He's basically forcing me to stay with him. So now we're all waiting for the baby to be born to get a paternity test. Also, John and I have been hooking up on the regular. I know that's not good. What do you guys think I should do?
Story time. So I was at a get together last night and one of my friends goes, I saw you on TikTok last night. And I'm like, you did? She goes, yeah, I had no idea you had a TikTok. And I watch all your videos, like I'm completely blown away. And I was like, oh, thank you. Did you follow me? Of course she hadn't, but she did now. She follows me. So we're talking and she goes, so what do you see when you look at me? So I look at her and I concentrate and then I see it. I was like, you have this Middle Eastern woman that's attached to you. Like, to me, it feels like an aunt. She looks after you. She goes, well, I'm Syrian on my dad's side. And I'm like, I have no idea you were like half Syrian. She was like, yeah, my dad's Syrian. I was like, okay, well, do you have an aunt who passed away? And she goes, yeah, my dad's sister. So I'm already like, okay. So at this point, her aunt is practically yelling in my ear, but I cannot understand what she's saying. It's almost like she's talking a different language, but she's angry. And I'm like, listen, she's trying to tell me something. I can't understand what she's saying, but she's not happy. Okay, go to part 2. So I tell her how her aunt's not happy and she's yelling in my ear. And then it hit me. Her aunt is mad and yelling in my ear because my friend is drinking. She doesn't like it when she drinks. That I finally it hit me. So then I told her yeah, she doesn't like that you're drinking. And my friend goes, I guess some things don't change because she never liked it when I drank when she was alive. So then I have another friend that goes, ooh, like what do you see when you look at me? Like do me next. So I look at her. I don't see anything. She has no attachment. I'm like, you have nothing attached to you, but you have something attached to your house. I felt it when I went in to use the bathroom. It's an old man. He's pretty peaceful. He's not looking to cause any problems. He's just hanging out. So she goes, I believe that because I've had a lot of things happen in the house that were unexplained. And you telling me that just confirms it. She goes, the previous owners of this house, the husband passed away in the house. He was an old man. And then I'm like, oh, and one last thing. You have a ton of fairies in your yard. She lives in a very heavily wooded area. They were just, I kept seeing them all over the place. She goes, fairy. Creepy story time. The story was sent in by Chantel when I had her and tagged her down below. When her and her husband first got married, they bought their first home. It was a townhouse. Once she had her kids, she fell on the stairs quite a few times. It always happened around the 3rd step from the top. One time she fell down so hard that she slid down the steps while sitting on her ankle, even though she tried to catch herself from falling by gripping on the handrail. This all happened in front of her 2-year-old. She ended up going to the ER because she thought she had broken her ankle. Thankfully, it was just sprained. However, after that incident, she did slip down the stairs quite a few times. She started to think that maybe she was just clumsy. One day her mom came over and she also slipped on that same step. On several occasions, her daughter also slid down the same steps. It was always on that third step. One day, Chantel's sister-in-law came over and she started sharing with her about all the incidents happened around these steps. Go to part 2. So she starts sharing with her sister-in-law about all the stories surrounding these stairs. Little backstory on her sister-in-law. She says that her sister-in-law is very similar to me. She's very open to the spirit world. On many different occasions, she shared experiences that she had gone through with Chantel. She felt comfortable telling her these things because she knew that Chantel would believe her and would not judge her. So after Chantel got done telling her all about the stairs, she never mentioned which step this happened on. Her sister-in-law looked at her and said, "Does this happen on the third step from the top?" Chantel looked at her in shock, like how could she have possibly known that? Chantel's sister-in-law really hesitated with telling her about this next part because she really did not want to freak her out. But then she said this, "I've seen a man that grabs the ankles of people walking on the stairs to trip them because he thinks it's funny." Chantel ended up moving out of that house shortly after that.
Do you know there are true stories of people who found Coraline-like doors in their own houses? Except it didn't take them to another world, it took them to places much creepier. In 2015, there was this couple who bought a new house, and they found this tiny secret door disguised in their bookcase. So they were super intrigued and even excited. They were thinking maybe it would lead them to some hidden treasure or money. But as they were going through the passageway, they found a note that read, "If you're reading this, then you found the secret room." But instead of something exciting, it said, "It's filled with black mold." The walls inside this secret room were covered. There was so much of it that the previous owner and his children were constantly getting sick from it. So the couple immediately packed their things, left the house, making sure to sue the agent who sold them the mold-infested house in the first place. Alright guys, I'll have to make a part 2 of more people who found creepy secret doors. This is part 2 of people who found creepy Coraline-like doors in their own houses. There was this girl who was 8 years old and moved into a new house with her family. She invited her best friend over and they were looking around the house just exploring, and they decided to go and sit in her closet for some reason. While they were in there, they noticed there was another smaller door in her closet. When they opened it, there was a small passageway and it led into a tiny room covered in carpet. It had a tiny bed inside, and all over the room were porcelain dolls just staring at the girl. Now this other room was not listed anywhere when this family purchased the house. They were super creeped out. Then there's another story of a family who found a tiny door in their basement. The door was covered in little peepholes, and when they went inside, written all over the walls were things like, "Stop watching me," "No watching Isaiah through the hole," and most ironically, no writing or drawing on the walls.
Story time on how I was kidnapped by my insane dad. Okay, so boom. This all began at the time when I was 8 years old. So my teacher was off for whatever reason, so we had a substitute teacher. The substitute teacher ended up being my dad, but I didn't know he was my dad at the time. But I always had a bad feeling when I was by him. One day after class, my dad asked me to stay to talk to him. But because I always had a bad feeling about him, I just made up an excuse and told him that I couldn't stay after class. And even when I gave him that excuse, he told me just give him a second. But again, he was weird, so I got the fuck out of there. Anyways, the next day at school, we had free time, and the whole time he was staring at me. It was actually almost my birthday, and I was passing out invitations to my classmates. Well, somehow he got a hold of one of my invitations. My birthday went by and everything was fine until the next day. It was Sunday and my mom was at work and I was babysitting my 2 little sisters. And this is where it gets scary. Like for part 2 on how I was kidnapped by my insane dad. Okay, so boom, like I said, it was Sunday and my mom was at work and I was babysitting my 2 little sisters. When I went to go get my sisters a snack, I heard something. I got scared and I immediately called my mom on our emergency phone. She looked at the cameras and there was nothing there, but I kept on hearing something. So I took my mom's old flip phone and I grabbed my 2 little sisters. I brought them to my room in our secret crawl place and I gave my older little sister the flip phone. I told my little sister to stay there and to not come out until I come back, and that if I didn't come back, to call the police and stay hidden until the police came. I grabbed my bat and went downstairs, and guess who it was? My insane dad. So that's when he told me that he was my dad and that he had proof. So I went with him to get him away from my little sisters, and that's when he threw me into his truck. I texted my sister the signal before he took my phone. Like for part 3. Part 3 on how I was kidnapped by my insane dad. Okay, so boom, like I said, my dad threw me into his truck. I was able to text my little sister to signal for help before he took my phone. About 20 minutes later, he stopped at a hotel. He again told me that I was his, and that's why he would stare at me so much, because he had to make sure. And then he said he had to make sure that I was his sacrifice, but I didn't understand what he was talking about. He was being very creepy. I ended up staying there with him for 6 days, where he was burning me with cigarettes and he was abusing me every day. But thank God, on the 6th day, the police was finally able to track me down. They were finally able to locate me and find me, and thank God they did, because my dad was actually planning on RIPing me. I ran to my mom, cried, told her I loved her, but I also told her that I did it to keep my sisters safe. Now he's in jail for 10 years, and he can't come within 100 feet of me or my family. My family moved to Florida with my stepdad, and now I'm expecting my little brother. Trust your instincts, guys.
Story time about how my best friend turned out to be a psycho from a crazy house. So about my freshman or sophomore year, there's this new girl. I'm going to name her Mika for the sake of privacy. So Mika was new, and she was very shy, and she was very quiet, and she had no friends. So I wanted to be the friend to her that I would have wanted if I was new to a brand new high school. So instantly after I introduced myself to her, she introduced herself to me, and we became cool. She was pretty, she was chill, and she was funny. So we were friends. I would walk her to her classroom from time to time just to show her around the building, wait for her so we can go to lunch together, and just so she would have somebody to walk around with in school. Mika then started to tell people that we were best friends, and people kind of assumed that we were because we were always together in the hallways. We exchanged social media, and then she started posting these paragraphs about me about